Sticky B says it in the comments. I'm going to open right with it. I'm going to address the elephant in the room right away. As we oftentimes say here on the Southside Beat, yes, it is a football show. But sometimes other sports take over the conversation. Sometimes other things take over the conversation. We're going to do our best to not make that one of those days. But as Sticky B says, Bucco's wasted another grand slam, and the bullpen's on the struggle bus. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Good afternoon, everybody. A good Thursday afternoon, May 23rd, 2024, here on the Southside Beat. My name is Crisan. Chris Halicke will join us momentarily. This is a football show. This is a Steelers show. We are 1 hour behind schedule today. This is 4 p.m. Eastern here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Not the usual 3 p.m. time slot. Had to move some things back, but the show does go on. It is not a Pirates postgame show. I'm sorry, everybody. But feel free to vent your frustrations in the comments if you must. I will talk football. Chris will talk football as we welcome Chris in here momentarily. Come on. Let's make this work. Hello, Chris.
Hi.
I was just making a point. I know some people are frustrated. This is not a Pirates postgame show, though.
No, it is not. It's a football show. We need to talk football.
We will.
No, we will right now.
I understand where the frustrations come from. After seeing Tuesday's walk-off win, then you think, oh, things are good. Things are better. They showed that kind of fight, and then the last 2 days out.
Sticky B, no, the house has been on the market for about 3 hours. So
officially.
Yes, officially.
Very good. Very good.
So it is on the market. So literally I could get a text at any moment saying, hey, we want to come look at the house. I got to go.
There you go. There you go. So we'll find out if that happens. I have to be out at 4:30 sharp for another work venture. But
all right, OTAs.
Day 3 of OTAs just wrapped up.
1 week in the books.
I can't say just wrapped up. Wrapped up about 2 hours ago on the south side. 1 week in the books. Football and shorts. Rather, I would say quieter locker room today, as Chris knows this. A lot of players on the final day of whatever week of OTAs it is, they get out.
Yeah.
They're in the airport now. They are in the air, some of them right now.
Yeah.
They are going to their varying destinations, of course, especially with the holiday weekend coming up, Memorial Day weekend. Yep. 3-day weekend for everybody, including the players. 4-day weekend for the players, actually. So, short locker room today. Obviously, practice went full today. I had a really good one-on-one with Dante Jackson, and I'll have more on DKPittsburghSports.com. I had a really good one-on-one with Dante Jackson. And to not overextend or spoil anything I'm about to write, he called this place heaven. So, more on that later. Had a little bit of a chat with Russell Wilson about 45 seconds before he had to go catch his bird somewhere. But again, football and shorts, just the installation process, the feeling out process for some of the stuff. Obviously, a lot of drills. That's the stuff we're allowed to film and allowed to share, at least in the spectrum of like multimedia, right? Mm-hmm. Like the shooting window for video only lasts so long, and obviously can't video anything with respect to team drills. And obviously, players have confirmed throughout the week some stuff. Obviously with the tackle situation, quarterback situation, what's going on there. So in the cornerback situation as well. So some of the early returns is what we're really looking for this week. And we certainly did get those, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, OTAs, again, just to kind of not to put a wet blanket on anything that's going on, because obviously, football and shorts is still football activity. So, reason to be excited for it. But, we won't really see the guys who stand out. Like, for example, I'll put it this way. 2 years ago during OTAs, it's not like Jaylen Warren was catching everybody's attention, right? Jaylen Warren, not saying that he wasn't being noticed or anything like that, but it was just kind of like similar news that being like, okay, this is another running back added to the mix or whatever. It wasn't until training camp in which you started to see, oh, okay, this dude looks a little different. It's because actual football is going on, right? the closest thing you could possibly get to actually simulating even a preseason game, and Mike Tomlin specifically does certain things like 2-minute drills and stuff like that during training camp and stuff like that. You actually get football. You actually get competition going on in training camp. That's not really happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but Mike in Texas brings up a good point here. Says, we all know we can't tell how players look during OTAs because they're in shorts, but how does the team camaraderie appear over the last few days? Now, obviously, I can't answer that. I'm not there. I'm trying to get my house sold here so I can be there. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you because that really is something you can at least, sense a bit of. Now, to be fair, there's typically some level of excitement every year because, well, it's like the first day of school. It's like where it's, whatever you want to compare it to. There's always excitement with that first week of actual football activity going on.
I think this goes hand in hand with the conversation we had about Kenny Pickett versus Russell Wilson yesterday, and the feel around the quarterbacks and the feel around the command that the quarterbacks are taking. If I had about a 35 to 42 second chat with Russell Wilson, somewhere in that vicinity, in the locker room today before he left, and Russell basically said, loves the team, loves the energy, loves the competitiveness, the drive, the what's the word I'm looking for? Urgency that they're going with right now. Paraphrase that one. And I think that's the general sentiment shared, at least with the players on the offense. Last year, this carried on right up until Matt Canada got fired. There was this quotient of same bleep different day with the offense. And what I mean by that is it was so in the mud with Matt Canada guiding it that the same questions were getting asked. Yeah. The same things were being seen. Not many changes were happening. The quarterback obviously had a stunt in his growth, and they obviously made changes to that position after Matt Canada got fired. So right now it's kind of the opposite of that. There's a little more excitement just because of the inherent change at quarterback with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and Brandon Allen and John Reese Plumlee. It's a whole new quarterback circle. It's exciting because they know the winning pedigree Russell Wilson has. They know he can win. And Mike Tomlin knows he can win. That's why the Steelers went and got him. They know that he has experience, that he's seasoned, that he's seen just about everything he's needed to see in football. It's a little bit different when the vibe with Kenny Pickett last year was hope and anticipation, and we think he's going to get it together and have a good second year. And obviously he didn't. With Russell, we're confident that Russell is going to lead us. We're confident that Justin Fields can grow. It's a different energy. I can't say it's obviously inherently better, right? Because you're not thinking about if. You're thinking about we believe he can. And they would say, we believe Kenny can make that step. They're going to say that. But I could tell there's a little more conviction with how they feel about Russell Wilson versus how they feel about Kenny Pickett. And that's just the vibe from the locker room, from the players that put on the uniforms.
Yeah. Really, really quick question from Jeff. And I again, I'm not there, but I can answer this to a certain extent. Now, Jeff asked, are they doing anything with the new special teams formation yet? Now, I would assume that's meaning the new kickoff rule. Anything that's being done in practice has to be confirmed by a player. That was usually the player that was involved. For example, if you want to know if Troy Fautanu is playing on the right side or the left side, you got to ask Fautanu, were you playing on the right side or the left side? Or
like yesterday when Landon Roberts said Patrick Queen had a pick six in practice.
Correct. If a player says something happened, then that's when you can use it. Other than that, you cannot report on what's happening in practice. That goes out the window during training camp because training camp practices are public. They're open to the public. So literally any fan can go and watch what the Steelers are doing. So we don't have to sit here and try to be secret about it because it's there for everybody to see.
Don't get me started on that. I think you know where I'm going with that.
I know where you're going with it. I know we're not allowed to film everything that happens, but we're allowed to at least describe everything that happens.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the stands.
How much sense
does that make?
Unless you're in the stands and are not credentialed media.
It is what it is. But yeah, so if it's being done, I don't know, but you're not going to know unless a player actually says it.
To be fair, also,
Mm.
and not to disrespect the question or disrespect the thought,
yeah,
it's day 3 of OTAs, where there's a new quarterback, newly built offensive line, newly built linebackers room. The captain of the team isn't here. The star running back has his contract coming up at the end of the year. Nobody right now is asking questions about special teams. That's the reality of the thing. Nobody's asking the punter. Nobody's asking Christian Kuntz. Christian Kuntz had a media scrum in his locker, but that was because he's the local kid and the draft is coming. That's what that was about. But nobody's asking about kickoff formations in the middle of May. No one's just doing it. I'm sorry.
Shit, man. I would just ask Christian Kuntz, like, man, how's it feel to get a 3-year contract as a long snapper?
I had a little sidebar conversation with him talking about, like, hey, you got that money. You got the money now. Like, you gotta front up for a couple things here.
Got that.
I forget who I was talking about dinner or something, or like vacation over the off season. They mentioned like Alex Highsmith, and I'm like, well, he's getting paid now, so make him foot the bill.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Sticky B asks, do you think the lack of a big wide receiver signing is tipping our hand that this will be a heavy run team? I can tell you right now that even if they were, let's just say in some sort of universe, or maybe even this one, that the Steelers trade for Brandon Ayuk, this team is still going to be a run first team. Mm-hmm. That is not changing. The Steelers will be. There's no tipping of hands here. I firmly, now if you go back and you look at Arthur Smith's previous offenses like Tennessee and Atlanta, typically they didn't have like this big, gigantic, double-headed monster at receiver. Typically there was one guy who was the guy, or in Atlanta, I don't even know if you would, Drake London maybe, but you're not saying that the Steelers can't have it, but it makes more sense. It kind of falls in line with, okay, George Pickens is your number one, and then you've got a number of different ways you can go with who can be the second most productive pass catcher. Could be Pat Freiermuth. DK wrote a column on that, and it's no secret that Arthur Smith likes to use tight ends, especially in the passing game. So it could be Freiermuth. It could be Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson could, make people like me wrong, and and prove that he can do more than just play out of the slot and do it right away. But I either way, it does not matter what happens with adding another starting caliber outside receiver. This is going to be a run first team. There's no, again, there's no tipping of hands here. The Steelers have at least revealed that part of their hand.
Mm-hmm. I just opened up the X app to look at the news feed, and a certain Pirates hitter staring or tossing his bat on strike 2 right before he took strike 3 was on the top of the timeline twice. So that's where we're at right now. But anyway, I efforted, it's the industry word, I efforted Van Jefferson in the post-game or the post-practice locker room today. Didn't have any luck. So we'll try next week. We'll get after it next week to ask him a couple of questions. But
yeah, the Thursdays during OTAs are not the greatest days for locker room access.
No, like I said, everybody's on a plane as we speak. I think Keanu Benton said his flight got out at 5 today, so he's probably at TSA right now. Unless he got pre-checked, which you don't get pre-checked. Woo! Get pre-checked.
I'm still not pre-checked, man.
You gotta get pre-checked.
I know I do. I travel for my job, and I still don't have pre-check. I don't know why I don't.
Coming up on DKPittsburghSports.com this evening, I'm fully aware of the news cycle in this city, and I think that a different sport might dominate today's headlines. But to make up a different headline, like it's not made up, but a really good one-on-one I had with Dante Jackson. So you'll hear about that later on, or you read about that later on, rather. Joey Porter Jr. held court over by his locker after practice today. TJ Watt's locker was right next to it, and TJ kind of butt in and said, "Hey, Joey, you're going to keep having press conferences like in our corner, or we going to have a problem here?" And Joey was like, "I don't know, like whatever TJ says goes, so I guess we're done." And Like there was like one more question, and then it actually was done. So that was a fun one. TJ's definitely in a good mood. He looks pretty good right now. Generic versus name brands. That's in reference to the quarterback. Says Brad. Generics work. Depends on what you're going for. Don't get generic.
Really does.
Don't get generic. Rest in peace, John Panette, one of my favorite comedians ever. But he always talked about he had a bit where he said no matter how broke he was, he always got good toilet paper. That was the line that he drew. He always got good toilet paper. Never went generic. Never went one ply, half ply. The stuff you see in the school, in the school restrooms. Like you always get good toilet paper. That was a John Panette bit. That's what that made me think of. Question from John. We know about Calvin Austin's speed, but can you tell if he has gotten stronger? I mean, I can't. He's not like jacked per se, but he looks like he's in good shape. I mean, the thing with Calvin is last year he was a pseudo rookie, right? He was in his second year, but he didn't play his first. He was a pseudo rookie, still getting things underneath him, still rehabbing and recovering from, his injury.
Yeah.
And, it was a difficult year for just about every wide receiver because of the quarterback and offensive coordinator and how bad they were. So, like, I can't say Calvin Austin's gotten stronger because based on like lifting weights and bench numbers. I don't have those numbers, but what I can say is he certainly looks healthier and he looks like he has a different gear that he can hit and that he's looking to hit this year.
I think the big thing with Calvin Austin isn't necessarily being, overly like putting on weight or becoming like this a lot stronger than he was. I think more than anything, he just needs to work on his route running. Really work on his route running, work on, the ability to gain, like when you talk about these smaller receivers that have a lot of speed, like one of the best ways that they can utilize that is to understand how to manipulate and how to attack and attack leverage against corners, that you're up against. For Calvin Austin, if he can find different ways to get open and to get the separation that he needs, then you can survive being a smaller receiver in this league.
Right.
So if anything, to your point, yeah, last year was kind of the first year that he had that, the first lap around the track, because really the first lap around the track, he was being carried around in a wheelbarrow or a golf cart or whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't run that first lap around the track. He was, he
was watching
did that.
The meet. He was watching the meet.
He did that last year. And so it's his first time going through a season, week in, week out, being coached up. And now he's got a new wide receivers coach, which, by the way, the clips that I am seeing of the new receivers coach working with the receivers, I'm really, really liking what I'm seeing there. I'm really intrigued to watch it during training camp.
I'm glad you brought that up,
because it seems, it's not saying that Frisman Jackson was not engaged or anything like that, but you can tell the coaches that have a different level of passion for what they do, and it really, really seems like this guy really, really has that. And just in the drills alone, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Now they're just drills. Right. So that's why I'm not just going to go over the top and say, oh, Roman Wilson can definitely become an outside guy, or Calvin Austin can definitely step in and become that wide receiver too, or make any kind of bold predictions, or George Pickens is going to become Justin Jefferson this year. I'm not going to say anything along those lines, but I'm just saying I'm liking what I've seen from afar, from clips that are being uploaded here on YouTube, stuff like that. Once I get my eyes on it in Latrobe, that's a different story, but I have liked what I've seen so far.
Yeah, Randy asked earlier, any surprises from our wide receiver room during OTAs? That was actually going to be my answer, was Zach Azzani, the new wide receivers coach. Very hands-on, very proactive. You can hear him. Like, again, not to put down Frisman Jackson or say he didn't, coach or speak or anything. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is Zach Azzani's style of teaching is very different than what Frisman Jackson was about. And look, I don't know what it's going to result in. And Azzani's been successful elsewhere. It's different seeing. I'll tell you one thing. It's different overall seeing Arthur Smith, Tom Arth, Zach Azzani, just with that entire room, with that offensive room, and then you add Brian Madison, the new strength coach, another guy you can hear very loud, Greenville's finest, by the way, Mercer County's finest. But yeah, it's a different feel with Azani and with that wide receivers room. And of course, they just lost. They can't say lost, but they traded away the guy that was there 5 years and that knew what was going on and could easily mentor. Mm-hmm. Now it's kind of like, Van's been in the league for a while. Yep. Wes has been in the league for a bit. Callaway, Mims, they've been in the league. But at the same time, the top of the depth right now is Pickens and Roman Wilson and Austin and Van. So it's like there's some youth there. Van's the new guy. When you think about Allen Robinson last year, he was a voice for that room because he was a veteran wide receiver in the sense of he's been there, done that in the league. But the way that the Steelers done it, Deontay Johnson was the answer for that. Mm-hmm. What was the guy to answer for that? Mm-hmm. And now it's a little bit different. George Pickens is that guy. Calvin Austin's that guy. They've been here a few years now. So I think that's an interesting dynamic that this wide receiver room has. Randy asked, players have so much on their minds, playbooks, etc. How in the world are they trained so fast on how to guard classified intel? Well, you just don't tell anybody about anything unless you're Kenny Pickett and leave it in the SUV and it gets stolen.
I know the answer here. The Steelers and the other 31 teams in the NFL have phenomenal PR groups.
Also that.
They train these guys up big time, and they are very, very good at what they do. They, those players are very, very much plugged in and told how to go about their business. And there is such thing as like media training too. So
they have
players have they know what to expect. Not just and even like certain to kind of peel the curtain back. And I think we've said this on here before, but not everybody might have heard it. Before a player, typically like the players that address the media weekly, like the captains and stuff like that. Those guys are, before they go to the podium, either Bert or Mike or another member of the PR team will kind of pull them to the side, and you'll kind of see them whisper in their ear for a couple minutes, and then they'll come over. They're probably prepping them on what questions might be coming, how to properly answer them, whatever, and so the Steelers PR team, and then along with the other 31 teams, they're very, very good at what they do. So,
well, the majority of these players also played high-level college football.
Yeah.
And the difference between college football and pro football is no open locker room in college.
Mm-hmm.
College, and I can speak for Pitt, and I can speak for a few other schools that I've covered. They have a PR staffer, sports info director, what have you, escort the player into the media room, escort the player out of the media room. There's no open locker rooms there. So that conversation happens probably on the way, on the walk from the locker room to the media room. In this case, with open locker room, and a great example is my conversation with Peyton Wilson yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Peyton Wilson, college football, basically defensive player of the year in college football last year. Highly regarded prospect, third-round pick.
What award did he not win other than Heisman?
Basically, yeah. Basically won the defensive Heisman, if you want to put it that way. I went over to talk to him yesterday and spoke with him for about a couple of seconds before the TV cameras caught wind of, Peyton Wilson's talking. Here they come. And I asked 3 questions of Peyton Wilson and walked away. And that was it. That's all I needed. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, I go back over to Peyton. I go, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it. He goes, yeah, no problem. I'm still used to you guys being in here and all the cameras and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know they don't have open locker room in college. It's a different feel in the NFL is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And anytime a big scrum like that happens in the locker room, even a PR staffer is right there listening. In case, number one, something out of line comes out of our mouths, in which case they'll say, don't answer that.
Yeah.
Or, something else might happen, or they keep time and track of what's happening. If Landon Roberts is holding court in his locker for 6 minutes, a PR staffer will probably put a timer on and say, all right,
yeah.
let's
couple more, and we're done.
Exactly. So, and that happens all the time. So, it's just a little bit of a different feel. Obviously, this is just the start of everything right now. We're going to get out of here in a couple minutes. I have a phone call to make for a work obligation, so we'll do that in about 5 minutes off air. But we'll be back tomorrow for sure. And then Monday's the holiday, so I think we're going to take Monday to enjoy our holidays, and so you all can enjoy your holidays as well.
Really, really quick. Joshua Dobbs here says, at the very least, we have speed. And I'm assuming he's referring to the receiver room, because the receiver room is very, very fast. There's a lot of speed in that room. If there's one thing that I can say about to kind of break this down into the basics, like speed is a great weapon to have, and it's something you can't teach. But the one thing that really can kind of almost neutralize speed, almost, is leverage. And if cornerbacks or safeties or whatever can have leverage and maintain leverage on receivers, it almost doesn't matter how fast you are. For example, I used that as an example in a Chalk Talk a couple of weeks ago, talking about Roman Wilson and talking about his route running and where he needs to grow and stuff like that in order to be able to stick outside. And I showed an example of how Deontay Johnson ran a route against the Rams last year. And he was running an out route against a cornerback, and that cornerback already had about probably 3 or 4 yards of outside leverage on him. And so, trying to, you got to figure out, he has to somehow get on the outside of a cornerback that's already 3 or 4 yards outside of him. So it's like, how do you do that? The main thing is you have to somehow get the leverage back in your favor. And the best way to do that in that particular instance is to attack the corner's inside hip and try to get him to bite on anything inside. So as soon as his hips flip to the inside, you can then cut it outside. And Deontay did it to perfection. He attacked the inside hip of the corner. And as soon as the corner flipped his hips to go inside, literally the very next step Deontay took into the ground, 90 degrees to the outside. And by the time that the corner was able to turn around, Deontay already had about 5 yards of separation. It's attacking leverage and learning how to manipulate that. And that's just one route in an entire route tree that includes outs and posts and ins and, all of these, curls and drags and crosses. And there are so many different ways that receivers have to learn how to run their routes. And speed can be a great tool, but it can be neutralized to a certain extent. And so that's something that we have to see from these receivers, specifically from guys such as Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, because the talent's there, but how can it translate into becoming good route runners at the NFL level?
You got to mold speed and technique. That's a big thing about it. And that's why having a really good wide receivers coach, good position coaches in general, are so important for all of this stuff. Thanks for joining in, everybody. We appreciate it. An hour late today, but nonetheless, show does go on. I think tomorrow we will have a show. Monday we will not. Monday we'll have Memorial Day. We'll let the airwaves clear out. You all can enjoy your holiday, and we'll be back tomorrow. And then Tuesday the OTAs reconvene for the next 3 days, and then there will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in 2 weeks for OTAs. So 3 down, 7 to go. He's Chris Halicke. I'm Corey Crisan. This has been the Southside Beat on a Thursday. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy the weather. It's beautiful out. Cheers. Have a great one.